Living is using time given to you. You cannot recall lost time. Don't forget that. Fuck! Bro, that's deep. Hey, g'day! How are we, fellas? You might remember way back when I released the Agnos Legendaries video. I talked about other planes of existence, realms for the dead to roam. And that's what we'll be going over today. These three areas are based off of different parts of Tartarus. The Fields of Punishment, Elysium, and Asphodel Meadows. But first, before we jump into things, you should subscribe. You don't know how long you have left, and I can assure you, if you don't, you'll fucking end up here. The Pits of Punishment of Pokemon Brains represent the Fields of Punishment. This is where all the world's greatest dickheads wind up, yourself included. Migdara rules over this realm, using its psychic abilities to torture its residents for all eternity, planting false realities within their minds, based off of their darkest fears, or else a joke on the way they lived. When you land yourself a prisoner here, of course you'll be tortured as well, and will need to overcome this reality if you wish to escape. Not that this has ever happened before. This is your punishment. You'll wake at the bottom of a dirty pit, with your rival, and the Gamma Resistance laughing and looking down on you, only for your team of Pokemon to appear and tear you to shreds, over and over again.
You won't get tired of dying, will you?
Again, this is all just an illusion in your mind, planted by Migdara. This greatest fear pulls from an inferiority complex. The player fears people looking down on them. To break the cycle and escape, you'll have to fight your team barehanded, dodging their attacks and hitting them as you do so, slowly whittling down their HP. This isn't an easy task by no means, but after you manage to do so, you'll snap back to reality, waking in your cell. This is the first time someone has ever snapped out of Migdara's psychic trance, and as you break out of your cell, a chase sequence begins. All the cells in the Pits of Punishment swing wide open, and prisoners ready to fight you, as Migdara starts fucking rampaging through the halls. You'll have a limited number of moves you can use in each fight before Migdara catches up to you, and quick time events to complete, which will give you extra moves. There are a number of prisoners and Pokemon here, based off of sinners in Greek mythology. First up, we have Guerre, based off of King Salmoneus. In the myth, Salmoneus' sin was impersonating Zeus and demanding people worship him as if he were. He would drive around in a chariot, dragging bronze kettles to make thunderous noises and casting torches in the air as forks lightning. Just kind of a douchebag. For this, Guerre's punishment in the pits was to be ran over by chariots, over and over, hence the tire marks all over his body. Because Salmoneus impersonated Zeus, Guerre's team is a knockoff of Galvan's. Instead of a Raichu, he has a Mimikyu, a regular Braviary instead of its archaic counterpart, a Furret as opposed to Centachi, and Flareon instead of Jolteon. Oh, and his name derives from Martin Guerre, a famous case of imposture. Pretty much this Guerre guy leaves his wife and kid, then years later, some fucking random cunt shows up, claims to be old Martin, and lives with the family for 3 bloody years. Fun stuff. Anyhow, next up we have Marrok, named after Sir Marrok of Arthurian legend, a knight thought to be a werewolf. He is based off of King Lycaon, who in the myths had been turned into a werewolf as punishment for attempting to feed Zeus the roasted flesh of his own son, testing the omnipotence of the gods. Therefore, Marrok's punishment is to indulge in an endless hunger, eating at his own flesh as if he were a wolf, whilst his Pokemon do the same. Obviously, his team is just a bunch of wolf Pokemon. A Werewolf, Absol, Lycanroc Midnight, and Lycanroc Dusk. One of the more famous residents of Tartarus was King Tantalus, who inspires Gulliver. The etymology behind his name means glutton, by the way. Much like Lycaon, Tantalus had cooked and fed his son to the gods, or else stole their ambrosia. King Tantalus was punished to sit in a lake below an apple tree. Every time he reached for the apple, the branch would grow just out of reach, and whenever he bent down for a drink of water, the water would recede. The punishment is the same for Gulliver. His team consists of a Flapple, Vaporeon, Kolbait, and Beggart. Kolbait and Beggart are some new mon that you can find in the Pits of Punishment. They themselves are based off of Tantalus, as well as kobolds and boggarts. Both are goblin-like domestic creatures that often play tricks. Kolbait from Kobold and Bait is always chasing the future and usually ends up going around in circles. They either take over their own territory or just suck up to the leader of others. This fucking idiot has managed to put himself in a psychic trance, which has held him back a lot. Beggart, its evolution, has its name deriving from Boggart and Beg. Beggart's goals always seem just out of sight. Whenever Beggart comes close to achieving greatness, something goes wrong. Always tantalized by his own endeavors. He's Tantalus after the fact, still in a psychic trance that always keeps him from reaching his desires. Our next prisoner, Holmes, is based off of another well-renowned king, this time Sisyphus. King Sisyphus had this whole ordeal where he would kill his guests and steal their shit, violating the laws of hospitality. So the gods decide he has to die. They get Thanatos to bring him in and give him some magic chains to bind his soul because Sisyphus, he was known to be a sneaky little bastard. And being as clever as he was, managed to chain up Thanatos, shove him in a box, and go about his day. Knowing he didn't have long left, he makes his wife promise not to give him a proper burial. So when he gets dragged down to Hades, he's all like, "Persephone, this is awful. My wife didn't even give me a funeral. What a fucking bitch!" So Persephone lets him out of the underworld for 3 days to make sure a proper burial gets done. But when he's out, he just hops right back into his body. Thanatos can't be convinced to bring him back, so he lives a long, happy life till he dies of old age. When he winds back up in the underworld, the gods are fucking pissed and send him to Tartarus. His punishment, that he shares with Holmes, was to push a boulder up a mountain, but every time it got near the top, it would roll all the way back down, representing the way that cheating death is an ultimately useless endeavor. His team consists of a golem, Dusclops, Chillude, and Shackold. Oh, and his name comes from the serial killer, H.H. Holmes, who was rumored to have escaped his execution. Chillude from chill and elude, like how Sisyphus eluded death, are based off of the Cretan wildcat, animals that themselves cheated death in a way. For many years, these cats were thought to have been extinct, until one was caught by a farmer a long time after. Chillude aren't very hospitable, and will freeze any visitors it has. When faced with repercussions, it will always be deceitful and run away from its problems. Shackold, shackle and cold, represents Sisyphus after his capture, weighed down by a massive ice ball and chain, reminiscent of the ones that he had trapped Thanatos with, as well as the ball symbolizing the boulder he pushes. He's even got the whole prisoner getup. He's our very own Purry prisoner. Shackold's scheming and trickery had finally come to an end, and now it is at the mercy of all others. He is made to do the same useless actions over and over again. Well, now we have Colin, based off of Ixion, who in life had murdered his father-in-law by pushing him onto hot coals. Following this, he lived as an outcast, but Zeus felt pity towards him and even invited him to Olympus. But then he tried to do the dirty with Hera. Zeus was mad and had punished him in Tartarus by having Hermes bind him to a flaming wheel that never stopped spinning, sometimes said to be covered in snakes. It represents his burning lust, and Colin's name means wealth. Colin's team is made up of a Charkindle, Center Scorch, and Survivor. Charkindle is a wooden automaton of sorts, with wheel-like contraptions that are always turning. Oh, and it's always on fire, that have turned bits of the wood to charcoal, which is where it gets its name. Charcoal and kindle. The flames that encompass Charkindle's body is what fuels it and keeps it going. Whilst the flames won't cause any damage, the feeling is truly unpleasant. Lennie is another prisoner of the pits, based off of the giant Titios. Titty. He tried to rape the goddess Leto, so he was sent to Tartarus, where he would have his liver eaten over and over again by 2 vultures, very similar to Prometheus's punishment on Mount Caucasus. His name is Lennie, pulling from Of Mice and Men, because he's just a massive dumb idiot. And on his team are 2 Mandibuzz and a Togepi. And the final notable residents of the Pits of Punishment are the Belide Family, based off the Danaids. though Ovid had referred to them as the Belides once, which is where my trainers got their family name. There were 50 Danaids, and they were to marry the 50 sons of an Egyptian king, but all but one of them murdered their husbands on their wedding night, landing them a spot in Tartarus. Their punishment was to carry jugs of water to fill a bathtub to wash off their sins. But the bathtub was always leaking, so they had to do this for all eternity. The Belide family have teams consisting of a Stuckit, female Jellicent, and Gorbus. Stuckit, from Stuck and Bucket, is just a little water creature in a glassy bucket. It requires water to stay functional, as it is constantly absorbing it, so constant maintenance. Stuckit can manipulate the water in its container freely, often used for transport and attacking, however. They also come in a range of different sizes, like Pumpkaboo. Oh, and one other wild Pokemon that you can find roaming the halls of the Pits of Punishment is Vendreda. I absolutely fucking love this design. Mayhaps my favorite. I don't know. Look, he's playing fucking RPS. Some good old rock, paper, scissors. His name comes from the words vengeance and dread. They are based off of the guards of Tartarus, the Hecatoncheires, monstrous giants with 50 heads and 100 arms. Obviously, 50 and 100 is quite a fucking lot, so we scaled it down and settled with this. Once engaged in battle, Vendreda will carefully watch its foe. It lands every blow without fail. This is thanks to its signature ability, No Quarter, which gives priority to all physical attacks. The Fields of Triumph, which are based off of the Elysium Fields, is the location you wind up in Pokemon Brawn. All the greatest heroes and pure of heart come here after death. Scalahad reigns over this realm, basking in glory alongside the heroes. A new resident here is call for celebration, so when you end up here, all the heroes come to party with you. Hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, so you enter a cycle of drinking, fighting, and good old fun. There's never really been a reason for someone to return to life after winding up in the Fields of Triumph, so the exit is just kinda there. But there is no fucking way in Hades that Scalahad or these heroes will let you out. To break the party cycle and make a break for the exit, you'll have to continually win in drinking festivities. You'll be sparring with all these heroes in hand-to-hand combat between drinks. Like in the pits, you'll avoid attacks and get hits in, but your vision will get more and more blurry each fight from the drinking. Outdrink and outspar all the heroes, and you can make your move. This too will start a chase sequence, which will work pretty much the same as the pits. First up, we have probably the most famous hero of all mythology, Heracles, who inspires Alphonse, whose name means ready for battle. Heracles was the demigod son of Zeus who had to do all those labors and shit. He killed the Nemean lion, slew the Lernaean hydra, captured the golden hind, caught the Erymanthian boar, cleaned the Augean stables, killed the Stymphalian birds, captured the Cretan bull, stole the mares of Diomedes, got the girdle of Hippolyta, obtained Gerion's cattle, stole the apples of the Hesperides, and caught Cerberus. Yeah, so it was a pretty big deal. Alphonse's team consists of a shiny archaic Arcanine, whose pelt you can see on his back, a Hydreigon, Skarmory, and Miaswine. We have another demigod son of Zeus inspired hero, Percy, after the hero Perseus, the slayer of the Gorgon Medusa. His most notable act of heroics was, well, beheading Medusa, which he had done so with his harp sword and looking at her through his polished shield. I had Percy's shield imprinted with the face of Gorgonite, which mimics Athena's shield, Aegis, which has Medusa's face on it. On his team is a shiny Gorgonite, Pegasaur, Archaic Wailord, and Delphox. Next up is Jason, named after and based on the hero Jason, captain of the Argonauts. He pretty much went on this big fucking long quest to find the Golden Fleece, which he did, plus a bunch of other shit on the way. And so his team is made up of a shiny Archaic Whimsicott, whose fleece you can see on his shoulder, a Colsparse, Dolpent, and Plusle. Oh, and also I gave him Spike's hair from Cowboy Bebop. Now we have Homer, after the famous Greek author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, based on Odysseus. Odysseus was a clever and cunning king hero, most well known for his contributions to the sacking of Troy, as well as his 10-year-long voyage home after the Trojan War. And, well, he did a bunch of shit on his way home. He also thought of doing the Trojan horse. Big brain. Homer's team is comprised of a shiny Polyclops, Miss Magius, Werewolf, and Sirenade. But moving on to the most famous hero of the Trojan War, Achilles, who inspires our trainer, Troy, named after the city. As a child, Achilles had been dipped in the river Styx, leaving his body invulnerable to all attacks. His only weak point was his heel, as this is where his mother held him as he was submerged. So that's why Troy only has proper armor around his heels. And he was a beast during the Trojan War, killing Hector, being an overall mad lad, and only dying because of Apollo's intervention. On Troy's team, we have a shiny Sentry, Decidui, and Mel Metal. We also have Hobbes, based on Theseus. The etymology behind his name means bright fame, and is apparently short for Robert, so his etymology also pulls from Robert the Bruce and Robert Baratheon. Theseus was the guy who killed the Minotaur in its labyrinth. He did other crap, but that one was his big magnum opus. And we're gonna ignore the whole getting exiled by Athens afterwards, and living in disgrace, and all the Dream SMP shit associated with it. And so, obviously, he has a shiny Flamintar, as well as an Arachnet and Carcosta. The final hero of the Fields of Triumph is Atalanta, based off of the hero Atalanta. Atalanta was like one of the only female heroes in Greek myth. She was well known for striking the creature first in the Caledonian boar hunt, as well as, for a time, being the only female member of the Argonauts. She proved that she could stand her own and outshine men in male-dominated areas. Very progressive for ancient Greece. On her team is a shiny Wilbur, Appleton, and female Pyro. The Fields of Triumph don't actually have any new Pokemon, but we do have some old favorites you can find here. Obviously, there's Pikachu, because it's fucking Pikachu. But then you can also find the cast of Twitch Plays Pokemon, a legendary moment in Pokemon's history. So you can encounter Omastar, Lapras, Nidoking, Pidgeot, Venomoth, and all their pre-evolutions. And because it wouldn't be the same without the whole Twitch Plays crew, there may also be a Battery Jesus, a Zapdos, hidden somewhere in the fields. The dreary meadows of Pokemon Beauty, inspired by the Asphodel Meadows, is the land of the dead in which all who lived neither good nor evil lives go. Ordinary folk. Everything here is fucking boring and monotone. Lepidina is the only thing of color and vibrance. Despite definitely not being ordinary, in Pokemon Beauty, you live the life of neutrality, not particularly fighting for either side of the war. So you get stuck here. This place fucking sucks. Once a resident of the dreary meadows, you enter a cycle in which you repeat every day, doing the same menial, mundane tasks, just kinda picking the flowers for Lepidina to chow down on. Before the chase sequence, to break out of the cycle, you must first collect a metric fuck ton of flowers. Everyone in the meadows feeds off of these flowers. They keep Lepidina strong and vibrant, while stripping its human residents of their emotion and identity. By refusing the urge to eat them, you can regain your color by siphoning it off of Lepidina when it comes down to collect its food. Once the color returns to your skin, the chase sequence through the dreary meadows initiates. Thinking of residents for the dreary meadows was a bit different to the other realms because, well, they're just kinda supposed to be normal people. Someone of Greek myth who lived a neutral life. Well, one guy comes to mind. Sorta. This is Bela, based off of the Greek hero Bellerophon. Despite being the legendary hero that slew the Chimera, Bellerophon's tale had a sad ending. You see, after killing the beast, he thought he was top shit and flew up to Mount Olympus on Pegasus. The gods, they didn't fuck with that, so they sent a gadfly to sting Pegasus, who promptly bucks Bellerophon off. He either dies, which is the happier ending, or survives by landing in a thorn bush, which both cripples and blinds him. Hence the thorny shit in his hair, the broken leg, and the eye patch. He spent the rest of his life wandering the earth. No man would help him because of his offense to the gods, and he died alone, with no one to record his fate. So, there you go. On one hand, he was a hero, But on the other hand, he gave into his hubris, which evens things out enough for him to land a spot here. On his team, we have a shiny Slaymera, Pegasaur, Ferrothorn, and Drabfly. Drabfly is the only wild Pokemon you can encounter in the Dreary Meadows. It's nothing special, just an annoying, fucking, boring ass, drab looking gadfly. It's just kind of boring. A mild inconvenience with not much else to offer. Some people keep a watchful eye just to avoid being around them. I want them to be worse than a Zubat in a fucking cave. That's it really. The only notable thing about them is just how fucking many there are in the meadows. Well, whatever. Next up, we have Gene. The etymology behind his name pulls from the words genius, genesis, genocide, and the name itself means well-born or noble. He and all the other residents of the Dreary Meadows aren't based off of anything Greek. I'm not going to get into the details really on this video, but trust me, this guy's important. On his team is a shiny gnome, Pandosity, Venusaur, and archaic Garchomp. Oh, and that unknown on his eye is his actual eye. It's not an accessory or anything. Some shit went down which made it that way. I'ma do these next two together. This here is Jordan, and this is Sasha. In life, they were companions to Gene, a little happy trio. Gene was the brains, Sasha was the brawn, and Jordan was the beauty. Sasha had been Gene's childhood friend and bodyguard, whilst Jordan was an actor with a knack for lying. Oh, and Jordan's a dude, by the way. In ancient Greece, men played both female and male roles in plays. Sasha, whose name means defender and helper of mankind, has a team consisting of Trudskull, Galvantula, Hypno, and Frostlass. Whilst Jordan, which was chosen because of its gender neutrality, has a team made up of an Agripan, Sonartoad, Torchair, and Gallade. Again, like Gene, I'll go into more detail on these two another time. The final 3 residents of the Dreary Meadows are just some regular ass guys, ancient ancestors to some common Pokemon NPCs. We have Youngster Joseph, ancestor to everyone's favorite youngster Joey, with a team consisting of Eradicate, Rattach, and Alolan Raticate. There's also Ketch from Catch, the ancestor to your generic bug catcher NPCs. On his team he has a Low Cluster, Eminect, and Butterfree. And finally, Billy from Billy Goat, the ancestor to your hiker NPCs. His team consists of a Steelix, Doug Trio, and Go Goat. But at the end of the day, you the player will claw your way out of the underworld, no matter where you wind up, and finish what you started. Before you escape, you'll fight the designated legendary. The legendary will be extra strong in this battle, and you can't catch it because I think if you use the legendaries to beat the game, you're a fucking pussy. So you need to defeat the legendary to escape death, and after you beat the game, you can come back to catch it and explore the zone. Alrighty, that's it for the vid. I hope you're liking all the Agnos content. Do us a favor and subscribe. Catch you fellas later.